Hello to all you Dune superfans out there. May I call you the Spice Girls? My name is EJ and welcome to Flickering Myth. In this video, we will be looking at, reviewing, but in a spoiler-free capacity, the latest epic blockbuster, actually the first real movie of 2024. We're going to be talking about Dune Part 2. I have not been this nervous to dive into a movie review in quite some time. I did not like the first Dune movie, and I was kind of mean to it in my review, and I got a lot of backlash for it. It was not a fun time. You Dune fans are passionate about your sandworms and your Paul the Savior boy, but I will say, going into the second one, I was a bit more optimistic. This is the better part of the book. This is a filmmaker who I like. I think Denis Villeneuve is a very talented filmmaker, and he shows off his talents in this movie. I have some issues with Dune as a book, as a inadaptable mess. Is it still inadaptable? Well, yes. This movie has some pacing and some plot issues. We would truly see the coolest thing you've ever seen in the coolest planet with some amazing special effects, some action, and then go to 30-45 minutes of just plot and praying and Messiah talk. Yes, we're all building towards a certain goal at the end of this movie, and I will say I'm impressed they got actually the full Dune book. There's a lot of stuff missing still, but they actually got the full Dune book in both these parts. I was waiting for them to chop up this one Dune book into 3 movies. Now we are shaping up for the Dune Messiah movie eventually, if we possibly ever get that. This movie is definitely a part 2 out of 3. You can say this was a 2-part adventure. This is part 2 out of 3. This is giving me Across the Spider-Verse energy. But again, this is definitely not as, I think, frustrating as the first film. It addresses a lot of the issues. I really had a problem with the white savior, not even just the white savior. That's just kind of simpling down this, the colonialism, the very rich kind of guy, this guy from an affluent life comes and slums it with the freedmen, and what does that mean? And do I trust him? This movie addresses it, and it even goes a bit further and starts actually making you really feel a certain way about people like Paul and Lady Jessica getting into this. What is their goal? What is happening? These visions that we're seeing, is it good? Is it evil? It's most likely going to be a mix of both. I will say, I actually kind of like this Dune movie for making everyone morally ambiguous. This is definitely the complex nature of Dune is who's right, who's wrong, everyone's right, everyone's wrong. And this movie handles that a lot better than I think the first one did. The first one, it really felt like it was pro-Paul, and I don't think the Dune books are pro-Paul. So I think that was adjusted here. I still believe the inadaptable nature of Dune. This should have been a miniseries. I think we spent some real good time with some real good characters and not enough time with some really great characters. And it's frustrating because I think this could be expanded out. Honestly, this first Dune book can be about a season, maybe a season and a half of a full television miniseries kind of vibe. Something maybe HBO Max, if you're thinking of a True Detective, what was the House of the Dragon? That kind of pacing and vibe could have definitely fit Dune, and I think it could have made it a bit easier to digest. This is still a lot of information, and I do think that Denis just struggles with urgency. It feels like he knows that he has a part 3 looming, so he's gonna just slow and move. There's so many scenes that I'm we could have cut this off about a minute ago. Oh wow, we're still in this world. It's frustrating because I think, again, talented filmmaker, it's just rough material to work with. But I will say, overall, I enjoyed my experience better. It's more jam-packed. It's better acted. 50% of the cast. We'll talk about the cast and who gets it and who doesn't. But truly, I actually really enjoy what this tried to do. It's still inadaptable. It's still a little bit messy, I believe. But boy, is it a lot weirder. If you know classic sci-fi, if you know space fantasy, you expect a little bit of weird. Something I had, one of the biggest issues I had with the first Dune movie is, bro, you took yourself way too serious. Oh my God, you're making a Dune movie. I'm not telling you to make David Lynch sting in a thong. But I need a little bit of, I don't want to say camp, I need a little bit of weirdness, a little bit of just embrace the oddity that is the story. And this movie is definitely embracing the weird. I think it stripped back the self-importance, embraced the true source of this is. It's a throwback fantasy story. Give me that. Give me outlandish characters. Give me complex characters. Give me horror movie scenes. There are some scenes in this movie that are straight up creepy and terrifying. And I'm not just talking about the embryo baby that we see every now and then that I'm like, oh, that is the biggest PSA for pro-life, pro-choice I've ever seen. That little embryo baby has burned in my head. It's far scarier than Austin Butler. But oh my goodness, Austin Butler. I mean, Austin Butler, Rebecca Ferguson, even Timothée Chalamet to an extent is really upping their character weirder, more outlandish, a bit more complex. Austin Butler's character, well, I will say one of my only negatives is the movie definitely builds him up, and then the end, I feel, is a bit rushed, going back to the pacing issue. So we're spending all this time setting up, characters and the importance of a situation we're going to see. And then by the time we get to the end of it and see the situation unfold, I'm like, that was it? I spent like 2 hours building up to this moment right here. It was a bit of a letdown. And look, all the pacing issues, all the way the story ends not being my favorite has nothing to do with the characters, though. Though, again, that's an asterisk. Some of the characters I don't really love, but we have people like Lady Jessica. Rebecca Ferguson is doing so much in this movie. She goes through it. Kind of in a way, Lady Jessica's story, I really like what Timothy's doing with Paul in this film. He feels more aware, he feels more present, he feels more commanding. And again, he is a wet rag in the first half of the book, and in that first movie, I thought he was one of the most boring characters I've seen. But that's not, again, nothing against Timothée Chalamet. I think he's a very talented kid, but I feel like he finally came into the Paul character. And then again, Austin Butler, deliciously evil, gross, weird, sick, terrifying. I liked it all so much, kind of found him a little attractive.
You need to leave!
But again, I had fun with some of these characters, but then we go to people like Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, and I love Zendaya. I just don't really love the character. Like, Shani, I think, is... She has a good point. She has a lot of things to say, but the story is about putting her character on the back burner towards the end of the story, and then we put Zendaya on the background of this movie, and I'm like, she was so good. I have complex feelings about some of the character arcs, some of the things like Bautista, Zendaya, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin. What was the point of some of these characters? I feel like we focused so well on some of the other ones. I love the Lady Ferguson's, the Rebecca Ferguson stuff with Lady Jessica. I really like the Emperor conversations. I mean, watching Christopher Walken, very much just do Christopher Walken in scenes with Florence Pugh with the Emperor and, her princess character. I liked those moments, a bit slowing things down. We would get crazy action scene, slow things down. I like that this did embrace the weird, like I said. I just still think there's not everyone was embracing it. That's how I'll finish this up. Not everyone was on the same page. Most of the actors were, some of the actors were not, sadly. Can a technical marvel still be painfully dry? I will have to say art department, visual effects, the art department comes with the sets and the costumes. All of it is just so great. You can touch the sets. These feel real. The costumes feel heavy and uncomfortable to wear, which makes it feel very authentic to something very royal and regal like this universe is. So I really do appreciate the craftsmanship behind this. I will say, though, some of the cinematography is not my favorite. Sometimes this movie is ugly, and I said sometimes. And it's also based on what they're trying to do. I think there are certain cinematography moments on Arceus, the planet with all the sand. I always forget the name. It's ugly sometimes. Sometimes when the sun sets and we're in that bluey vibe, I hate the way it looks. Sometimes I'm just not in love with the color palette of the film. I think, Denis just has great shots. Amazing shots. Really fun action set pieces. The first sandworm riding scene, thrilling, fun, engaging. I was like, oh wow, a Dune movie can truly be fun. And then we go back to slow prodding Messiah talk, and I'm like, all right, we're back to this. But again, I like what this was presenting. I just think it's a little dry sometimes. Sometimes, again, sometimes it's not. It's not up to where I think it could be. Sometimes I think they really went, wow, that looks cool. And I'm like, but why? Like, why are we doing this? What's the motivation? I don't know from motivating every shot, which is just purely weird film school kid stuff. I want something a little bit different. And again, this really doesn't have anything to do with the movie. It's the material. I think this is hard to adapt. I think it's a weird story. And I think you either are going to get it and you love every bit of it and are just thinking this is absolute masterpiece, or you're like, yeah, this is fine. And I'm kind of more in the fine category. I definitely don't think this is a bad movie. I won't give this a rotten score like I did the first movie, which I don't think is that great. This has the better parts of the book to adapt. It has most of our performers on a different level, and overall it's a technically well-made movie. It may not be my favorite. This is like a hard 6-7 out of 10. That's still a good score. That's still, for me, for a sci-fi fantasy film of a book and a story I really don't like, I will take that 7 out of 10 and run with it. I hope I could present to you one of the more fair Dune reviews. After trashing that first film, I really wanted to come into this movie with a better mindset, with more to say that's a bit more constructive. And again, I do think this is a better movie. I had a good time with it. I cannot believe those words came out of my mouth. I actually enjoyed reviewing it. I had a decent time, like, after talking with my friends, all the other critics about it. This is definitely a conversation starter movie. I just don't think I would personally revisit it, when we get up to whatever third Dune movie there is. This did give me a previously on Dune, so that helped a little bit. But yeah, they're just fine. These are not my cup of tea, but I definitely think this is a better made movie and has a lot more to say and a lot more to do. Anti-colonialism, talks about the white savior, fear of why is this man here? Can our people free us, really? And I kind of throw Friedman there. I like this stuff. I think this is a better version of Dune than we would ever get. Still think David Lynch's is still the most ridiculous, fun, over the top, but this is probably the closest to a great, maybe a good Dune movie than we'll ever get. All right, guys, what did you think of my breakdown? What did you think of this movie? Have you seen Dune? If you're a critic who's seen it, let me know your thoughts down below. If you have not and you're waiting for it, what did you think of this breakdown? What's your most anticipated moment? Share that down in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to Flickering Myth because we make videos like this every single week. And I thank you guys so much for joining us if you are already subscribed. All right, everyone, let's talk about Dune Part 2 right down below.